The International Society for Stem Cell Research announced new guidance which is troubling the pro-life community. The guidelines remove the long-standing 14-day rule which limits experimentation on human embryos beyond 2 weeks of their creation. Charlotte Lozier Institute says the rules will allow human beings to be treated as research fodder. Nearly 36 whistleblower groups are urging the World Health Organization to launch an independent review into the case of a spiked coronavirus report in Italy. An Italian researcher says he was pressured by the WHO to falsify data into the country's pandemic response. His report was taken down following a complaint from WHO's Beijing office. Joining us now is Representative Chris Smith, Republican from New Jersey, who has been sanctioned by the Chinese government for his work on human rights. Representative Smith, welcome back. Always so great to be with you. Before we talk about the coronavirus, I want to get your take on something that we had just mentioned, the announcement by the International Society for Stem Cell Research removing that 14-day limit on experimentation on human embryos. What are your thoughts on that decision and what it signals as far as the sanctity of life?
Well, I think it's a full frontal assault on the sanctity of human life. I never agreed with the 14-day limit. Why can you experiment with human embryos and introduce monkey sperm and create hybrids, chimeras that if allowed to progress, would end up being an animal that might be monkey and human. This is outrageous. This is unethical. Just because the capability exists to do it doesn't mean we can do it. And I've introduced a bill. Senator Braun has introduced the identical bill in the Senate to prohibit this creation of these chimeras. And the big question now is also on the funding. This moratorium on funding that we've had in place is at risk of being reversed as well by the Biden administration. So we're appealing to them not to do it. There are some things that are so awful. Creating a monkey that's part human, part monkey, or any other animal hybrid is unethical, and it needs to be stopped. So the 14-day rule says it stops after 14 days. In the admonishment by the International Society for Stem Cell Research, they're saying lift the 14-day and let as long as the scientists want to go with it, they can. What, to a year? A newborn, the equivalent of a newborn, and beyond. This is awful and has to be stopped. And our bill would stop it.
Yeah. And as you know, there are also growing calls from lawmakers and the House and Senate actually to investigate the origins of the coronavirus pandemic, particularly looking at the Wuhan lab. What more can you tell us about that? And why is it so important to get to the bottom of it?
Tracy, Xi Jinping, the dictator of China, engaged in the biggest cover-up in all of medical history. The information that we had early on from whistleblowers inside of China itself were telling us that there was a problem, that it was coming out of the Wuhan laboratory. Some of those individuals got sick, and they were demonized by their own government. And then fast forward over these past several months, I introduced a bill that would do similarly what we did with terrorism and Saudi Arabia to allow people who have lost their lives, their families, and lost jobs to sue in U.S. courts to get the truth. The World Health Organization has covered itself in shame in agreeing to and acquiescing to China's Communist Party's narrative that it was first in wet markets, and they reversed that in terms of its origins. We need to know how this happened. Had we known earlier, there's many more things that could have been done to mitigate its spread, and maybe we would have been on to how interventions, including vaccines, even earlier than we were. So it's a cover-up, the likes of which none of us have ever seen. It's not surprising because China has done this before, and other SARS viruses and the like, but this one, which has killed 26,000 people in my own state of New Jersey alone, and about 600,000 in the U.S., and then many more hundreds of thousands worldwide. China needs to be held to account, and they have not been. And the WHO, Dr. Tedros, who's the Director General, has been complicit in falsifying or at least covering up this information. Even when a fact-finding group went there to check it out, they were denied basic access. They need absolutely unfettered access. And frankly, Dr. Fauci and others have not covered themselves with honor on this. I mean, they used to, all of them suggest that, it was pie in the sky. It was conspiracy theories. When those of us who raise these issues, it's not. And we, unfortunately, we have more dead people, wounded people in the world and in our own country because of it. And look what it did to the economy as well. So China needs to be held to account. I think they need to be sued. Maybe we get nowhere with that, but it would be one way of trying to, through discovery, get more information from them.
Real quick, we have probably about 30 seconds left or so, but I really want to talk to you about this. There's a growing number of people calling for a boycott of the Olympics in China, including yourself. You even called it, quote, the Genocide Olympics. Talk really quickly about why you believe that boycott is so important.
Well, this is deja vu all over again, to quote Yogi Berra. In 2008, despite their horrific human rights abuses, they hosted the Summer Olympics. Now they have the Beijing 2022 Winter Olympics. And they are committing, as we talk, Tracy, on this call, a genocide against the Muslims in the Uyghurs, as they're known as. They're also doing horrific things in Hong Kong. And then just generally speaking, the entirety of their human rights abuse, they are in a race to the bottom with North Korea. But given the size and magnitude of the Chinese human rights abuses, there's no other human rights abuser more culpable than Xi Jinping. And this is all coming from him. And the IOC, the Olympic Committee, faltered badly in accepting their bid for the 2022 Olympics. Move it, find another venue, which can be done, or boycott it completely. I mean, it's reminiscent of the 1936 Olympics with the Nazi Germany.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we have to leave it right there. But thank you so much, Representative Smith. Wish we had more time to talk to you. Always appreciate your time. Thank you again.
Appreciate it.